Everything changed in a matter of seconds. Or at least that's exactly how it feels when you're watching the foundation of an absolutely historic franchise start to crack under the weight of its very own legacy. Welcome to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a situation that honestly feels less like a normal football season and way more like a premium, high-stakes corporate thriller. Before we pull back the curtain on this explainer, do me a favor. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a comment below with your thoughts as we go through this. Oh, and if you really want to support the deep dive analysis we do here, consider becoming a channel member. So, we are looking at the Las Vegas Raiders in 2026. But look, this isn't just your standard roster breakdown. This is an explainer of a franchise pushed to the absolute literal edge. Think about Al Davis. He built this team on a rogue, anti-establishment ethos, right? Commitment to excellence. Just win, baby! Those weren't just catchy marketing slogans. They were the actual DNA of a football empire that absolutely terrified the rest of the league for decades. But now, that historic weight feels like a massive anchor dragging them down. The silver and black armor is rusting, and it's rusting both down on the grass and high above it up in the owner's suite.
So it begs the question, is this the end of an era in Las Vegas? I really want you to hold on to that thought. Just let it echo in the back of your mind as we peel back the layers of this franchise today, because the answer is way more complex than a simple yes or no. You know, the Raiders are a team completely defined by their mystique, their renegade history, that iconic silver and black. But right now, at this exact moment, they are facing a terrifying dual threat. On the field, you've got this desperate, clawing battle for simple relevance, but off the field, there are these quiet, ruthless boardroom power plays being orchestrated by literally some of the wealthiest, most influential men on the entire planet. The tension is just palpable.
To truly wrap our heads around the massive seismic shifts happening off the field, we have to first look at the immediate, high-stakes battle happening on it. 2026 is the ultimate make-or-break season for the Las Vegas Raiders. The margins for error? They're gone. Completely erased. The fan base is beyond exhausted, and this roster has just been through the absolute ringer. I mean, just consider the emotional whiplash of the Max Crosby situation. Think about that for a second. The literal heart and soul of this defense was practically packing his bags for Baltimore. A massive trade with the Ravens was entirely negotiated, done deal, only to spectacularly fall apart at the 11th hour because of medical flags and disputes over draft compensation. Crosby came back, sure, but that locker room was deeply shaken. You just don't brush off almost losing your franchise cornerstone like it's nothing. So now, the coaching staff is under an intense, almost suffocating microscope. Every single snap this season carries this heavy, heavy weight. And that pressure, it peaks right away, immediately in September.
Which brings us to part one of our explainer, the Week 2 curse.
To understand the macro-level crisis, we have to look at the micro-level conflict, the literal barrier standing in the way of the Raiders' survival right out of the gate. For years, the Raiders have started their campaigns with an early divisional game that almost inevitably triggers this massive downward spiral. And standing in their way once again are the Los Angeles Chargers. Look at this timeline. It's brutal. 2021, a devastating loss in LA that completely derailed their early momentum. 2022, a heartbreaking blown lead where the defense just utterly collapsed in the final minutes, pretty much signaling the end of the Derek Carr era. 2023, a total offensive shutdown. They couldn't even move the chains. 2024, a gut-wrenching fourth-quarter turnover that sealed their fate. And 2025, another blowout loss. That is 5 consecutive years of facing the Chargers early in the season, almost exclusively in Los Angeles, leading to 5 deeply, deeply painful defeats. The Raiders have literally not beaten the Chargers at SoFi Stadium since fans were allowed back into arenas after COVID. They aren't just playing a football team in Week 2, guys. They are actively battling their own ghosts. They're battling history itself. The psychological toll of boarding that flight back to Vegas, defeated year after year, you can't measure it, but it's massive.
7. Now, that's not a player's jersey number. That is the total number of games the Las Vegas Raiders have won over the past 2 seasons combined. Let that just sink in for a second. 7 wins in 2 full NFL years. Last season alone, they managed only 3 victories. And you want to know what's even worse? They failed to win a single AFC West divisional game for 2 entire seasons. Not one. The on-field product has reached a completely dire state. The standard has fallen so far that simply fielding a team that stays competitive into the fourth quarter feels like climbing Mount Everest right now.
But here's the wild thing. there is actually a massive psychological advantage hidden within all of that failure. Because the expectations are historically unimaginably low, first-time head coach Clint Kubiak is quite literally playing with house money. The bar isn't just low, it's on the floor. Think about it. If Las Vegas manages to win 5 games this season, the league views it as a success. If they win 6, it's a resounding triumph. Kubiak operates from that highly aggressive modern Shanahan coaching tree. We're talking heavy pre-snap motion, wide zone rushing attacks, complex play-action passing. Normally, when a coach is terrified of losing his job, he tightens up, right? He calls plays conservatively. But Kubiak, he has the absolute freedom to call this game with utter ruthlessness. He can open up the playbook. He can run the trick plays. He can literally weaponize that complete lack of pressure. Kubiak and his squad have absolutely nothing to lose in Week 2 against the Chargers, and that makes them an incredibly dangerous, desperate opponent. They have everything to gain.
Moving right along to Part 2, a window of opportunity.
The schedule makers have basically handed the Raiders a lifeline here, but they have to be organized and ruthless enough to actually grab it. Look at the stark contrast on your screen. The first 4 games of the season are surprisingly manageable. You have the Chargers, a Chiefs team currently missing Patrick Mahomes, the Dolphins, and the Saints. But, man, if you look ahead to the next 8 games, it is a brutal, terrifying gauntlet. We are talking about facing heavyweights like the New England Patriots, who have completely rebuilt a suffocating front 7 that is quite literally designed to terrorize young quarterbacks. The Los Angeles Rams operating Sean McVay's dynamic, hyper-efficient offense, and then a trip to face Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, a cold-weather nightmare scenario where the Raiders historically just crumbled to pieces. If the Raiders do not build a cushion in those first 4 weeks, that 8-game stretch is going to completely bury them before they even reach their bye week. A fast start isn't just a goal, it is completely non-negotiable.
So let's break down exactly what that fast start requires. First, you have to break the curse in LA. You have to steal that divisional road win in Week 2. Second, take full advantage of a truly monumental opportunity in Week 4. A home game against the Kansas City Chiefs, who, again, are currently without Patrick Mahomes. Look, Steve Spagnuolo's defense is still elite, absolutely, but without their generational quarterback, the Chiefs are forced into a conservative ground-and-pound game script. That is something Las Vegas can actually defend if they just load up the box. Third, handle a Miami Dolphins team that is dealing with just as many new puzzle pieces as the Raiders are. Miami is breaking in a completely revamped offensive line right now, and they're adjusting to a brand new defensive coordinator. That creates massive communication vulnerabilities early in the season. Honestly, it's a soft pitch. And finally, survive the Saints. If Las Vegas can just steal 1 or 2 of these wins, they set themselves up for a 2-2 or maybe even a 3-1 start. That would be an absolute dream compared to the last 2 years, and it gives them a real fighting chance to stay afloat.
All right, let's pivot to Part 3 of this explainer, the ownership shakeup.
As the roster fights for its literal survival down on the gridiron, we really must transition our focus up to the owner's box. Because while a 3-1 start might save a coach's job, there are massive, franchise-altering moves taking place in the shadows right now that will dictate the future of this organization for decades to come. The ground is shifting in the boardroom. While all the cameras are completely focused on Clint Kubiak and the players sweating it out, the financial architecture of the Las Vegas Raiders is being quietly dismantled, piece by piece, and rebuilt by an entirely new class of power players. This right here, this is where the real tension of our story lies.
Listen to this hard report from Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer regarding the recent Spring League meeting down in Orlando. Quote, NFL owners will vote today on limited partners Egon Durbin and Michael Meldman buying further into the Raiders. End quote. Guys, these aren't just minor everyday adjustments. Let's really look at who we are talking about here. Egon Durbin is the co-CEO of Silver Lake. That is a massive global technology investment firm that already has insanely deep ties to the UFC and Manchester City. The guy is a heavyweight dealmaker. Michael Meldman is a real estate tycoon and the billionaire co-founder of Casamigos Tequila alongside George Clooney. These are not just passive fans who want a nice luxury suite on Sundays. These are aggressive, calculated maneuvers by billionaires to carve out significant influence within one of the NFL's most storied brands.
The sheer scale of this quiet takeover is staggering. Just look at the numbers. Egon Durbin is purchasing another 11%, pushing his total interest to a massive 22%. Michael Meldman is pushing his total to 12.9%. You put that together, and over a third of this historic franchise is now firmly locked in the grip of these 2 men. Over a third! But here's the crazy part. They aren't the only ones circling the desert right now.
Notice the sheer concentration of immense wealth and corporate power flocking to Las Vegas. You have Tom Brady, whose minority ownership has already served as a huge guiding influence over the past few years. But look at these new additions taking their own small chunks of the franchise. Michael Dell, yes, the billionaire founder of Dell Technologies. Joseph Baratta of Blackstone, bringing that intense private equity ruthlessness to the table. Ari Emanuel, the high-powered CEO of WME, and Mark Shapiro, president of TKO. You literally have Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and Hollywood all converging on the Raiders at the exact same time. And how does Ari Emanuel's influence change things, you ask? Well, as the head of Endeavor, which owns the UFC and WWE, Emanuel understands how to monetize spectacle better than anyone else on earth. He doesn't just want a football team. He envisions transforming the Raiders into a year-round global entertainment juggernaut. This is an absolutely unprecedented coalition of titans.
Which brings us to our final act, Part 4, A New Era Dawns.
This is the inevitable collision between this massive influx of new corporate money and the deeply entrenched legacy of the Davis family. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk recently dropped a quote that sent absolute shockwaves through the league. Quote, "For now, Davis is cashing out partially. It's starting to feel like Davis is inching toward exiting the business he inherited when his father, Al Davis, died in 2011. End quote. But here is the smoking gun, everyone, the crucial point that changes literally everything. Mark Davis himself admitted that Egon Durbin actually holds an option to purchase the controlling interest in the Raiders if Davis ever decides to sell. The exact mechanics of a controlling interest option are chillingly absolute. This isn't some handshake agreement over a beer or a vague promise. It operates essentially like a financial call option. The strike price, the valuation metrics, the legal succession, it has all been pre-negotiated, locked in, and drafted by armies of corporate lawyers. If Mark Davis wakes up tomorrow and decides he just no longer wants the stress of the NFL, he simply triggers the clause. Egon Durbin wires the billions, the league rubber stamps it, and the Davis family's reign ends. Overnight, just like that.
The trajectory of the Las Vegas Raiders has already pivoted. Al Davis ran this team like a renegade family business. He wore tracksuits, he constantly battled the NFL commissioner in federal court, and he operated on pure, unadulterated instinct. But that mom-and-pop era, it's dead. We are looking at the future architects right now. Figures like minority owner Tom Brady and newly added executives like Fernando Mendoza are quietly stepping in to chart a new, hyper-corporate, relentlessly modern path for this team. They represent a sterile, hyper-optimized, suite-level corporate efficiency that is worlds apart from the old Oakland days. It's a completely different universe.
So, I leave you with this final, lingering question. What will the Las Vegas Raiders actually look like by 2027? If the team fails on the field during this brutal make-or-break 2026 season, and the new billionaires in the boardroom decide it is finally time to exercise their options, the Raiders as we have known them for decades might disappear forever, replaced by something entirely new. The clock is ticking, loudly. Both on the turf in Los Angeles for Week 2, and high up in the glass boardrooms of their new owners. Thank you so much for joining me on NFL Nexus. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit like on this explainer, and comment below with your thoughts on who you think will eventually own the Raiders. Do they survive this? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please support the channel by becoming a channel member. Until next time, keep your eyes on the details, because in this league, the game is always bigger than it seems.